I was coaching a real estate guy the other day, and he did 107 deals. And I said, well, what are your goals for next year? And he said, I would like to do 125 deals. And I go, that's only 18 more deals. So you're going to come back next year, work hard, and pick up 18 deals. That's not a quantum leap goal. You're ready to do a quantum leap today. You don't have to wait for something to happen. Nothing has to get ready to happen for you to get ready to do this. If you just open your mind to a little bit more creativity. So thank you guys for coming tonight. When we built the Greatness Factory, obviously one of our biggest goals was to bring some of the best people in the world here for you. And I think first step toward greatness is getting close to it and touching it. And our relationship really started with someone giving me a copy of U Squared. How many of you read U Squared or the Quantum Leap Strategy? Right. Just look around the room. If you haven't read those two books, then this is like recommended reading for everybody in the room. U Squared's 37 pages, right? 37. Am I right about that?
37 pages.
37 pages.
8,273 words.
Yeah. And Dr. Pritchett believes in what's called the minimum effective dose. So why write a book this big if 60-something% of people never read past a certain number?
There was a study done. I think it's 2022 that said the average person in the United States, only 47%, I believe it was, complete one book a year.
Yep.
And I know my audience, working with corporate America, we were writing some of our handbooks for the execs. A lot of them, though, were to employees because that was a lost audience. Nobody was writing books to them about the pressures of change, merger integration, wreckage, and all of that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, there are a lot more employees than there are execs. This is a bigger market.
Yeah.
And I knew that audience. I knew my people out there in those organizations. And I wanted to write something that I thought they would read. And it was short enough that they might go back and reread it and read it again.
And how many copies has that book sold?
Of U Squared? No.
Yes.
U Squared, I don't know. It is not our biggest seller. It is our most often ordered, though.
Okay.
Not our biggest seller. That little handbook has been, I don't know, somewhere between $3.5 probably and $4 million book, which isn't bad for a book, given that most books that are published sell, 5,000 or 6,000 copies or less?
Less than 90% of all books created sell less than 5,000 units over the lifetime of the book. So when you get up into those numbers, you're getting up into a very elite number of books there.
I think our biggest seller, and Kim Webster, who's one of my executive vice presidents at the company, she could give you more chapter and verse, probably more detail, but I think we have sold, our biggest selling handbook has sold about 14 million copies. No, that's not right. It sold, anyway, it's the biggest seller because companies would buy bunches of them.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
All right, well, let's get into some of these subjects, and I'm going to ask some questions tonight, and then I'm going to allow the audience to ask some questions. So, when I wrote the book $1 Million Days, I used a concept in there called baking soda. And baking soda can be used in different ways. They tell me, but back in the old days, some people actually baked with baking soda. Now, I don't remember that. But I've seen it used to deodorize. I've seen it used, some people brushed their teeth with it. And I called it baking soda because you could use the same skill or the same product in a different way. Okay? So my first question for you is, how does a clinical psychologist end up doing $350 billion with a B, $350 billion worth of mergers and acquisitions, and being involved in $350 billion worth of mergers and acquisitions?
Probably it would get to that thing that you call prey drive, I imagine. when I went to college, I majored in English. Why? Because of naivete. English was easy for me. I could do that English game really good. And so I decided I'd get a degree in English. Finished that degree, and I thought, nobody's chasing me down to hire me. And so I thought, maybe you need an advanced degree. So I started getting a master's in English. And I was about halfway through that before I kind of grew up and realized that, and I said, I'm going to get a professional degree. So I decided to get a degree in psychology. And my thinking was I'd always wanted to write. And I thought, the more you understand about the human beings, probably the better job you could do in your writing. And so I decided I'd get a professional degree, got the PhD in psychology, but I knew from the front end, I wanted to work with business and industry. I wanted to work with successful people. Now, I did a clinical internship. I actually spent about 2 years working in psychiatric ward, which is a terrific learning experience, and absolutely put in italics that was not my calling. But it was good from the standpoint, Coach, that it showed me what happens when people don't do the things that you and I talk about.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so I finished that degree, started the career, and spent close to a couple of years in the Pentagon, working I was a captain in military intelligence. And then I started with a firm in Chicago, and I was working with major companies, big Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. Another great learning experience is consulting to the top deck executives. And it was interesting, and I've told Coach this story before, it kind of gave some roots back to the eventual writing of U Squared, because I would see executives one week, I'd be evaluating this exec, maybe for company president, vice president, VP of strategy, maybe company president or something. And then the next week, you'd evaluate another executive that was being considered by some company. And you'd look at them and they'd look pretty equivalent in terms of brain power, how they measured out on intelligence, looks, academic credentials. Maybe had gone to pretty equal universities, colleges, whatever. But one of them was making 2, maybe 3 times what the other one was. And it's like, there's something interesting here. Somebody's making different choices. And then when I went to Dallas and started my own company, and I was doing the same things we'd been doing in Chicago, but I decided I wanted to break new ground. There were several reasons I took us into merger integration work, because, and that's kind of another question, but so we started working with these companies, and it was fascinating because I saw that same kind of pattern. Let's say you got these 2 companies, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, but let's say you got Company A, it's a $500 million company. It's doing good, growing about 7-8% a year. Very respectable, just organic growth. Okay? Next week, you're working with another company, call it Company B. Maybe in the same industry, maybe not, but again, about $500 million in revenues, pretty respectable growth, 6 to 8%. But one day, Company A goes out and acquires Company C, which is another $500 million company. And just like that, it's doubled in size. That's fast growth. And so we focused on merger integration strategy because it was virgin territory. There was no company in the United States that specialized in the consolidation process of M&A. And so we had a lot of fun there, and I just saw some fascinating things. But I think how you get from starting out that way, degrees in English, and you get a degree in psychology like that, but you end up with business and industry. I said, I think there's prey drive there involved. And you get to this thing that's been called need for achievement. There was a lot written about that by McClellan at Harvard back in the 60s. And people vary greatly on their need for achievement. Some people aren't interested in making quantum leaps. They're very content where they are. They don't want that stress or that change, that discomfort.
Yeah.
So the other thing is some people, I think they go where they go because they're running from something instead of running towards something. Mm-hmm. And I have always been one of those people, we talk about, are you playing to lose?
Yep.
I mean, playing to win or playing not to lose. And it's a big difference in whatever personality slant you have. So anyway, that's kind of a wandering story about how I ended up where I did and how I started writing about quantum leaps.
Well, I want everybody to understand that he went to school. Your dissertation was in rapid growth, rapid self-growth. So you had an interest in university in rapid self-transformation. But you spent 2 years working in a psych ward, great laboratory, and then you decided to take your skill set to a bigger table, or what he called the big table. Okay? And that really got my attention. Why are you going into mergers and acquisitions? And you said that was the biggest game in business. Yep. M&A was the big table, right? So I want everybody to understand, because there's a lot of small business owners in here, and you may be thinking, well, what does that mean for me? I'm not a $500 million company, and I can't go acquire another company, but I want to open your mind a little bit to strategic partnership, right? A merger or acquisition, a merger is really a strategic, a partnership, right? Like a smaller company could think in terms like that.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of smaller companies, I mean, very small entrepreneurial shops would actually be surprised if they knew how little money it can take to acquire another organization.
Nice.
And you get creative and you understand get some financial guidance on how this can be done. You would be surprised. I had a client in Opelousas, Louisiana. It's called Louisiana Foods. And this guy had been, that did this deal. His name was Ted Schad. He's passed away. He's an interesting guy. But anyway, he had been a CPA with Price Waterhouse, and he'd left. He'd acquired this company in Louisiana. I think it's about a $70 million company, $75 million company, something like that. He said, yeah, I put $750,000 of my own money in it. That's how much of his own money he put into it. And if you start getting into that vein of information about companies that are out there, and there are people exiting or people that they need some help if they're going to grow. Yes. So anyway.
Yeah, and we're going to see a huge transfer, guys, as people begin to age and they have businesses that they no longer want to run. And some of those people are going to say, here, I don't want this business anymore. Take it. Take it from me. Pay me a little bit of money. So I just want to put that on your radar. Could you explain what a quantum leap is?
Yeah. Somehow over the years, I guess because we go through first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, you finish the 8th grade, you graduate maybe, and you're in high school. You're a freshman, then you're a sophomore, then you don't go freshman, senior, you don't go sophomore to college. And so somehow it's hammered into us that we do growth incrementally. And okay, I'm at this job in this company, then I've got to do my time and so forth so that I can get this next job up. And life does not have to operate that way. There are people who skip rungs on the achievement ladder. A quantum leap is not linear growth. It is exponential growth. And It brings into play, of course, a lot of dynamics that we've talked about. And what's funny is I was reflecting on the plane flying in from Dallas today about the dynamics that I saw with working with organizations, large groups, large organizations, Control Data, John Deere, Upjohn, I could go on and on. Major companies, and you're looking at the people in these organizations, you're watching them struggle with fast growth. And the dynamics, the human dynamics that come into play in a merger, in a group context, they just transfer across when, as an individual, we set some huge goal in front of ourselves. Executives, when they do a deal, particularly if it's a sizable deal, and lots of them are, there's risk involved. First, you aim big. You do that when you decide on a quantum leap. You decide on a goal that for you is certainly a real stretch. It may seem marginally outrageous and ridiculous. Westinghouse saw a memo in Westinghouse some years ago, and they concluded that small deals were every bit as difficult to make work as the large deals, which kind of says, why not go for the big goals?
Yep.
And we talk about the research that's out there, and it's stacks of research. Big goals work better than small goals. Now that's counterintuitive. You'd think this next step should be easier than skipping steps. Why do they work better? Well, several reasons. One, they force you to think differently, and you think on a different level. Your old ways don't work. And you discover new and better ways and potential within yourself that just has been latent. So you get more creative, you get more imaginative. It's more energizing. It rallies other people. Other people get excited about big goals. They don't get excited about the next little thing. And so they just work better. Now I think I like goals of all sizes. Small goals, that's good for tomorrow, the next day. That's good for this week, this month, maybe this quarter. And then I believe in intermediate goals, which I would call milestone goals en route to the quantum leap, the big, epic 5-star goal that you're shooting for. But anyway.
So when you're thinking about these quantum leaps, because I was coaching a real estate guy the other day, and he did 107 deals this year, which is a good number. We got real estate people in the room. And I said, well, what are your goals for next year? And he said, I would like to do 125 deals. And I go, that's only 18 more deals. So you're going to come back next year, work hard, and pick up 18 deals. And I said, that's not a quantum leap goal. So in a case like that, what would you tell him is a quantum leap goal? Is it to try to figure out how to do 10x that number? Is it to go for 250 deals? Is it like, how would you tell somebody if you were saying, no, that's a small goal in comparison to what you could do? Because he's doing it with a small number of agents. And the truth is, there's people out there doing 1,000 deals or 2,000 deals if they got a big enough team and all these things. So how would you counsel him?
Well, I would say you're leaving a lot on the table. There's a lot more potential within you to do bigger things. The only thing is you will need to do differently. Astro Teller, and you've heard me say this, Randy, Astro Teller heads up Google X. That's their moonshot piece of Google that dreams up these crazy projects. Famous quote of his is, it's often easier to make things 10 times better than it is to make them 10% better. Easier. That's another counterintuitive thing about quantum leap goals. Because you have to think differently, you end up smarter. You think smarter. You're functioning on a different plane. And Tim Ferriss, who's the author of The 4-Hour Work Week, amazing guy. He has this wonderful question he poses for himself sometimes, which is, you're facing a problem, or you're looking at a goal that you want to achieve, and you're thinking, this looks big and tough, and I don't know if I can do this. And so he says, ask yourself, what would this look like if it was easy? Had a real estate agent in Dallas that was listing our home there in Holland Park a few years ago. And we were selling that one and going to do another one. Anyway, so he was going to show the home one day. And so my wife, Patty, and I, we left. We just, get out of the place while he's showing the home. And so we get back, and he said, yeah, it was a good showing, whatever. And he had been there in my library. And he picked up a copy of U Squared Handbook. And he said, could I keep this? I said, yeah, sure. So he took the book. And a couple of weeks later, it might have been a month, but it was hardly any time. And he came back and he says, this book totally changed things for me. He said, here's where we were in my real estate agency thing. I was at a point with competition being what it is, technology changing like it is, I was going to have to invest a lot of money, and it was going to be a real struggle to get us, to go forward the way we want and maybe keep some growth going and so forth. And he said, so I read U Squared, and he went to another major real estate company there in Dallas, and he said, what if we join forces? Basically, they acquired him. And he said, this is the most wonderful thing in the world. He said, it solved all of my problems and more, and now I get to semi-retire. And that's what we need to release our creativity, our imagination. The U Squared Handbook gets into that. The Quantum Leap Strategy does. Even the latest handbook I did, Lucky You, gets into that somewhat. I realized some time ago, not that long ago, I was thinking I might have been doing a podcast or a speech, or it might have been on one of our things we were working together, Coach, I don't know. But I was thinking, okay, here I am. I went through grade school, high school. I got a bachelor's degree, I got a master's degree, and I got a PhD. Not once in all of that education did I have one single class that taught me the principles of making a quantum leap, of how to use my mind. And that's where it all starts.
Hey, this is Coach Michael Burt. I'm here at the Greatness Factory today, the Level 10 podcast studio. And as you can see behind, I got new imaging. I got a new concept. The big table is a metaphor for the biggest opportunities that are available to you that you're trying to work toward in your life. We're going to go to work on activating 3 parts of your nature. You first, that's science of winning. That's habits of the top 1%. That's the language that we use every single day. That's the activation of prey drive. That's the A to B exercise that we do. And then we're going to go to work on your business. And the business is got these 6 core components, right? The activation of your team's prey drive, the explanation of value, the lead generation system, the follow-up and conversion, the engagement after the sale. We then move to activating your wealth. 8-figure people stuck in 6-figure vehicles. How do we expose you to some of the best thought leaders in the world as it relates to what's going on in the market, how to make investments, how to raise capital, and put all this together, folks, and we are getting a seat at a much bigger table. I'm Coach Michael Burt. I can't wait for you to see this podcast. It's called The Big Table. We're going to help you secure your seat there. Follow along, engage with me, and hit that subscribe button. So when you think about these quantum leaps, for years I thought, I'll have a business. I don't really want a big sales team. I don't want to manage a big sales team, but I want to grow. And so all of my students have heard me talk about going to a bigger coaching company and saying, I'm bringing 2,000 leads. You have 300 salespeople. What if I bring the leads and you bring the salespeople, and let's go do 25 to 50 million together? And we almost did that deal. And that would have been a quantum leap, right? To go from 0 salespeople to 300 would be a strategic partnership. So some of you have been told you can't sell your business. Your business can't do these type of things that we're talking about. But the truth is, you would hear Dr. Pritchett say, you're ready to do a quantum leap today. You don't have to wait for something to happen, right? Nothing has to get ready to happen for you to get ready to do this, if you just open your mind to a little bit more creativity. Now, in my next question, I call it psychological flexibility, or some psychologists call it psychological flexibility, which is the ability to move toward something and have no idea how you're going to get there. So for all the analytical people in the room, this is hard sometimes for you because you want to map it out perfect, and it's got to do this, and you're going to write it on a piece of paper, and it's going to work exactly the way you do it. So speak to that, developing that muscle of choosing an aiming point and just moving toward it without knowing how it's going to work out.
You would be surprised maybe to know that companies do major acquisitions. They don't have much of a plan.
Some of y'all are seeing that right now, aren't you?
Now, what my firm would do, we still do. We got a project running in Italy right now. We don't give them a plan, we give them a methodology. We give them a system. When you make a quantum leap, it's very, very different than setting conventional goals. Quantum leap goal, you don't know how to do it. If you know how to do it, you can button that down and frame that out in detail. It's almost certainly not going to be a quantum leap. It may be a nice little gain goal of some kind.
Yeah.
But companies do these deals. They follow a methodology if they're smart. If they don't, those things get tangled up, and the hit rate of success in mergers and acquisitions is not that good. There's a lot of wreckage out there when deals, when people go into this. And I've written any number of books and handbooks on this. But anyway, you don't have to have a detailed plan, but you need a methodology. And it does not need to be some complex, super engineered thing. That, and to Coach's point, I'm a firm believer in minimum effective dose. So what I tried to do in my handbooks, or what we do with the corporate client that's going through some huge big deal, we say, these are the fundamentals, and there are not that many. Not that many, but you need to adhere to these. If it's a quantum leap, you can't make a detailed plan. If it's a quantum leap goal, you do not have the resources in hand. You cannot see that you've got all, maybe the time, the money, the skill base, the contacts, professional contacts you think you'll need, and you can't stay comfortable doing it. The conventional goal setting approach is de-risk. Let's get a detailed plan, minimize risk, eliminate risk if we can, okay? It's altogether different when you're making quantum leap. you take new risks. They have to be new, they have to be bigger, because you're going to have to change your game. Doesn't mean it's a harder game. It can be an easier game. But people get tied to their status quo behaviors, their legacy behaviors. That's a big problem in mergers and acquisitions. You bring these companies together, in both companies, you got all these people in there that want to keep doing things the same way. And it's twice as big a company now. And it's going through upheaval now. Okay? So there's resistance.
Yeah.
And we see that, we also see resistance when we set ourselves on the path to some knock it out of the park goal. And the other thing that troubles me, and Coach and I talk about this, is that people don't understand the path to fast growth. They don't understand kind of they don't understand that journey. If you understand the journey, it's a lot easier to take the stress and the difficulties and the mistakes.
Yeah.
And so we try to teach people what the journey is like and where you're going to turn against yourself.
Yeah. So you talked about the risk and the mistakes. Okay? And so let's combine some concepts of yours here, because part of a quantum leap is a lot of failure. I've heard you say you're going to fail your way to a quantum leap. But then you wrote the book Hard Optimism and the Unfolding. And these are books that kind of give you the tools as you face adversity, as you face failure. Talk a little bit how you fail your way to it and what these tools do for you.
Okay. First of all, I'll pause for a moment just on the word optimism. It's one of the biggest assets you can have in your career, is learn to think along possibility lines. And I think we've absorbed the idea over the years, most of us, that optimism is better than pessimism. Yeah. Think positive, think more positive thoughts. Okay, well, let me tell you what the research shows. This is more recent research, and it's absolutely fascinating. Which do you think is more important? Thinking positive or not thinking negative?
Not thinking negative.
Okay, some of people have read the book. Or they're smart. They've read the research or whatever. Yeah, here's what research has found. It's not optimism out here on the good side of the scale and pessimism down here on the bad side of the scale. They're two different scales. Okay? And priority one should be reduce the negative thinking. Keep thinking positive. Keep your score high on that scale. But the main thing is reduce the negative thinking, because negative thinking does more harm than positive can do good. And it's a beast when you're making a quantum leap. Yeah. It's keeping that mindset right. So back to this thing on hard optimism. They say that about half of most of your personality traits is inherited from your parents. But they say with optimism, it may be more like 25% to 40 to 50%, I believe is the number on that. And so we're made differently, of course, as human beings. Some people come into the world, it's just kind of their DNA. They're more upbeat, brighter spirited personality and such, and some people certainly less so. Circumstances are a massive factor, but we can learn the behaviors of optimism, and we certainly can learn how to take setbacks and defeats and all of the troubling parts of life. We can learn how to manage them more effectively.
Yeah.
And you've read Hard Optimism. What do you think is What struck you as the one that would be most effective of the techniques that we talk about there? Or what's one that works best for you? Because you're out there doing stuff. You talk about the things you hit.
Although I write positive motivational books, I can go negative quick. And I can go from 0 to 60 to negative town, right? I was raised by a single mother, a lot of survival, can go negative quickly. I inherited that. So when I'm reading Hard Optimism, I'm reminding myself of positive reappraisal, which is looking at things, and instead of, a lot of times we look back on something happened in our lives, that was a terrible thing that happened, then we look many years later and go, that's one of the best things ever happened to me. Y'all ever done that before? Yeah. Like, thank goodness that happened. When I saw positive reappraisal in that book, I go, okay, as things come up that we think my knee-jerk is negative, I'm going to learn how to positively reappraise things as they're happening. To see it like, this is good. We need this. Let's use it as a prey drive activator. Like working that muscle. That's really what Hard Optimism has done for me. Because I can go to the sewer cycle versus the success cycle. And it's like training your brain to cut down on those negative thoughts. Because you talk about the 6 C's. Comparing, complaining, contending, criticizing. How many of you in a market over the last couple of years, like I can't tell you how many people I coach who go, this is a terrible business or terrible model or terrible this or terrible economy, and you just kind of go with it, man. And the next thing you know, that's what's coming out of your mouth a lot. Your language is negative. Okay? So to me, that's what those books have done for me.
It said we have some 50,000 thoughts a day. You know, I don't know how anybody can actually count that, but let's take that as a rough number. Okay? Well, that's a lot of mental traffic up here.
Yeah.
And we're not taught to manage that traffic. And that traffic runs our life.
That's good.
Performance begins inside the brain. In your thought patterns, in your mindset, in your mood, and how you frame things, and how you feel about yourself.
Yep.
That's it. All depends on your thinking.
Yep.
And we hadn't been taught how to use. It's the most. I call it the 3-pound tool. It's the most important piece of equipment you have to work with. And the positive reappraisal is probably the most effective tactic that I talk about in there. I've learned that, you know, everybody gets hit in the stomach with some kind of problem or concern that comes along. And I'm pretty good at just kind of taking the blow and saying, okay, that's there. What might come of this, you know? And not blowing out of proportion. And one of the 5 C's is just industrial grade negativity. What's the term, Kim? Yeah, catastrophizing. You know, oh my God, we exaggerate it, we amplify it beyond. So they say that optimists, this is how they look at a problem, how they frame a problem. Optimists look at it and say, well, this isn't all my fault. Pessimists blame it on themselves to a huge degree. Okay? Optimists say, well, it's a problem here, specific to this situation, and so forth. Pessimists act like it's okay, this is going to travel, it's going to permeate other aspects of my life. And then the optimists say, it's kind of time bound. It's limited to now, kind of this situation. Whereas pessimists, it's like, good God, this is a forever effect kind of thing. And so there was a book that was written a few years ago that was just a fascinating book. It's called Learned Helplessness. It's written by Marty Seligman, who later a psychologist at Penn State, who later became president of the American Psychological Association. Fascinating book. But he talked about how he experimented with dogs and how dogs, in some of the situations they would put them in, they learned helplessness.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we kind of do that kind of thing to ourselves. We don't respect our own agency. And we get back to this thing, I need to loop back to it, that we were talking about a while ago, and it had to do with bravery. Are you willing to...
Remarkable boldness.
Yeah, that remarkable boldness. Here's the thing. Anybody can be brave. And I think a lot of people get the idea that you got to feel brave to be brave. Well, that's bull. Most of the people I know that act bravely, they don't feel brave.
Yeah, it's good.
You just don't. So much of the time, you can manage, you can decide to act bravely. You're in charge of your behavior. You're the boss. You're the CEO of that.
Yep.
And other people, you act brave, let me tell you what other people say about you. They'll say, that's courageous stuff.
Yeah.
And it is. That's how it happens.
So you really act your way into feeling. You don't feel your way into acting.
Exactly.
And you're not a victim of your moods and feelings. You are in control of those. Okay? Tell me a time in your life when you felt like your back was against the wall. And what did you do? Like because I know even as we write stuff, sometimes we don't even take our own medicine, right? It's like tell me a time in your life when your back was against the wall and what did you do there?
Oh, I could tell you something that I wouldn't tell anybody. There are those, you know. What would be the best lesson to kind of give? I don't know. Years ago, this was back early 90s. And we moved to new office buildings at the Galleria there in Dallas. We took on a whole floor of space. My company did. We were growing like crazy, and we needed more space. And I took on a second floor, and fully furnished it. Nice furniture, okay, top of the line furniture, and it was too big a step. And so I was faced with the fact that, okay, you got that one wrong, dead wrong. And so I guess, what did I do about it? We swallowed hard. We, at a time when it made sense, we offloaded that. And yeah, there was some money lost there. It wasn't a critical thing, but it was painful.
Yeah.
We're more resilient than we think, I believe. We don't try stuff because we think, I don't want to take those blows. The mistakes are your coach. The mistakes have been your best teacher your entire life.
Yeah.
And we talk about, you know, when people ask for examples of quantum leap, or they hear me saying, every one of you have made quantum leaps in your life. I know that because you're sitting here and you're alive. And the most obvious and earliest example that I can think of that you made a quantum leap is when you went from crawling to walking. How did you get there? That's an entirely different game. Crawling is nothing like walking. It's a totally different strategy. And you can't crawl yourself fast enough to come up off all fours and be walking. Doesn't happen. You got there because you were bound and determined you were going to become upright and able to walk like your siblings did, your mother and dad did, your playmates did. So you had a big ambition. You had no plan for getting there. You did not know how. It was uncomfortable. You fell. You bumped into things. You got bruises. You learned. And you kept going because you were obsessed with this thing. You were passionate about it. And that's how you did it. When you learned to ride a bicycle, you can't walk yourself to riding a bicycle. It's a totally different game. And if you learn to ride a bicycle, you can get somewhere a hell of a lot faster with a lot less effort. You're going to fall. You're going to lose your balance. You're going to make some mistakes. But it's kind of funny. We never forget how to walk. We never forget how to ride a bicycle. If you will start the quantum leaps or restart your quantum leaping, you won't forget this is what I can do.
You know, what I'm thinking of is when you hear me say we have 50 greatness factories around the U.S., and people ask me, well, how are you going to get there? And I go, I don't know. But I see it, you go there in the mind before you go there in the body. All things are created twice, first mentally, then physically. Every person in this room has a vision and a dream, and you may have gone there in the mind, but you can't quite go there in the body. So you go from mental creation into physical action. What's the next logical step we could take? What's the next thing we could do toward that? That's really what he's saying there, is focus on the ends versus the means. Okay? That's hard for a lot of people to do, but just get moving toward that thing.
Yeah, start. For God's sake, just start.
Tell them about the planning department, where that is, what happens there.
That's the first fundamental mistake people make when they decide to go for a quantum leap. They start trying to come up with their plan. I'll tell somebody, you got your goal. Well, first of all, let's make sure it's a quantum leap goal. Okay? Okay, it's a quantum leap goal. It's big enough. It's going to scare you. You don't know how to get there. You don't have the ways and means to get there. Okay, fine. What are you going to do now? And they want to plan. They want to prepare. They want to get ready. And I say, no, it's not about getting ready. It's about getting going. Forward motion is the fastest education you can find. You can go study books and all this kind of stuff. Get in the game. Go to the table. Start. Write down 5 things right now, today, that you are equipped that would move you closer to that epic goal. Write them down, okay? Pick one. Do it. Move on it. You're not going to find any faster way to learn. And it's about the doing. There are 2 functions typically in a corporation that want to slow down the merger integration process. One is legal department, and the other is IT. Okay? And our battle with virtually every client is, you've got to go faster. Because you're going to have resistance from a lot of the people in the organization. And you've got to outrun the critics. Because the critics get their proof first. You go into a merger and it looks messy. It's kind of like let's say you decide that you're going to put in a completely new kitchen. Okay, start. What's it like? 2 weeks in, what's it like? The place is filthy. There's dust everywhere. You got wires sticking out of the walls. You can't use the kitchen stove. You can't use your refrigerator. It's a mess. Things get worse before they get better. Oftentimes, that's what happens when you start a quantum leap. Kid starts crawling, things get worse before they get better. Okay? And people get scared. They don't understand that you're doing new stuff. And that creates psychological soreness.
Yep.
Let's say that you go to the gym and you're going to start an entirely new, your first time to the gym, maybe. You want to get fit, okay? So you go. What do you feel like the next day? You're sore and you're stiff and you don't want to go back. And you got a lot of people think, I don't want to work out if it feels like this. And it doesn't always feel like this. You got to work through it. But you got to go through the soreness. And we talk about step 2 in the quantum leap in the U-squared method. Step 1 is pick a very ambitious aiming point, your goal. Second step is practice relentless pursuit. Relentless, relentless, relentless. Don't bench yourself because you get sore, because you make a mistake. Okay? Take the lesson, move on. You work through the soreness. Relentless pursuit. The third step, just for the record, is do the necessary mind work. That's keeping yourself in the optimistic zone. That's keeping your focus on the goal constantly. Put your goal on your phone. How many times do you stare at your phone a day? That goal should be staring back. That should be the image on your goal, on your phone. Sleep with it, shower with it, take it to work. Romance the goal, because that keeps it front of mind, such that there's a little part of your brain right back here, the reticular activating system, becomes your silent partner. And it starts looking for ways to help you. And you'll see opportunities, possibilities you never saw before. Stuff comes out of nowhere to assist you in making the quantum leap. And it gets spooky. It does. It's like voodoo, kind of. If you know what you want, you're passionate about it, you're clear, and you will chase it like crazy.
All right, final question for me, and then we're going to take some from the audience. What activates your prey drive?
I like breaking new ground.
Okay.
I like doing something new. I guess it gets activated when I'm against winners, working with winners.
Yep.
It's a fun thing for me. We're affected so heavily by the people that we're around. And successful people don't hang out with the down and outers, the negative crowd, the constant critics. You need to put yourself in an environment. This is a great environment. You know, I can watch the evening news, the talking heads on TV, and it just puts me in a negative mood in a matter of minutes. And so I've learned, God, don't even do it. I'll catch a few headlines. I know what's going on in the world in the general sense, but I don't need the really depressing part of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. What do you do?
Work it. Well, I mean, I'm activated by competition. I'm activated by embarrassment. I'm activated by fear of loss. You know, but I am activated when I'm around other great people. And the reason I wanted to work with you over the last year was, you know, I have this saying that the book doesn't change your life, but the coaching changes your life. But I remember the first time I said that, Kim kind of grimaced. She didn't say anything to me. But Kim looked at me like, oh. You know, I really do think that those two books that you've written has changed a lot of people's lives. And it got me thinking not in terms of incremental growth. It got me actually disgusted with incremental growth. And it got me mad at incremental growth. And taking so long to get to one place, it got my brain open to a new possibility. And so it is true that I don't think most books change people's lives. It opens their mind. But your book, those two books, I do think has changed a lot of people's lives. And for that, I say thank you.
Well, thank you for that. The books are short because I want it to be read again.
Yeah.
And again. And I want it to be marked up. I want it to be notes in the margin.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the handbooks that people show me,
Yeah.
they're a mess. And they're beaten up. And we'll get pictures all the time of people sending us a picture, you know, of their U-squared book or their Quantum Leap Strategy handbook. Minimum effective dose, the smallest dose that will produce the desired income. It does it the quickest and the most effective. And that's what we try to do. Cook it down, get to the real essentials. Making Quantum Leap is not that complex. If it was, a 2-month-old, say a year-old, couldn't pull them off, right?
Yep.
We're born with a growth instinct.
Yep.
And I'm going to have to run.
Yep.
I've got a plane to catch.
All right, so we got time. We got Price for 5 more minutes. Who would like to ask Price Pritchett a question? And if we could get that microphone, it's right over there, Jana. It's right, sitting right on that thing right there. And let's, over here, you can start up here. We got time for just a few of those. We actually have 5 minutes exactly.
Price Pritchett, first of all, great speech, great information. Thank you so much. My question is,
You're good.
does that sound good? Okay.
Yeah.
We talk about all the times, like Coach Burt talked about being at the big table. You went to mergers and acquisitions for you being at seat at the big table. How do you know the difference between where you think you're at the big table or you know that you're at the big table?
Well, the big table, there's a table for everybody. What do you want to do? Somebody might say, my big table is I want to be in perfect physical condition. I want to have a body fit to kill. Okay? Then your table is the gym. Get your butt over to the gym. Somebody else might say, I want to become a pilot. Okay? Your table is flight school. And your table will change probably as you grow and discover more of the potential within you. What's a table that you're drawn toward? I was drawn toward the table of mergers and acquisitions because I could make more money there. I was playing with with winners who were having big impacts, doing big things. And I could have a higher fee structure. Those all, made that my big table.
Yeah. All right. Another question? Right. Okay.
A question about, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
A question about psychology, just in general. Okay? What's the biggest killer of somebody's potential? When it comes to their mind, what's the biggest killer of their potential? They're capable of so much.
Yeah.
They're capable of helping people. Is it the selfish, the insecurities because of who they're around, because they're only working a fraction of the potential? What is the one thing that we just need to go, no, you are not real. I'm going to ignore you and I'm going to do this because I have value to add.
That's good.
Well, I think negative self-talk is about as destructive as about anything we can identify. There would be other things. We can destroy our own self-concept just by beating up on ourselves all the time. Now, that's not to tell somebody to become totally narcissistic and self-absorbed and all of that. There's lots of other ways to destroy yourself, I guess, and be damaging to other people. But optimism is a massive enabler. It's like a broad spectrum drug. It drives so many things in the positive sense. It's good for other people. It's good for you. There was a question over there, a hand raised earlier.
Go ahead. Let's take this last question right here. Just stand up and you can say it.
What are a couple of key things that you wish you knew at the beginning of your journey that you would tell yourself if you could talk to yourself?
I would take more risks. I'd tell myself, take more risks, take them sooner. Think bigger and put yourself out there unequivocally.
Let's give a big hand to Dr. Price Pritchett.